too hard to do. And I guess he could just be, not
taking
seen.
a knife and manipulating some kind of mechanism under the car.
Well, not even that. He could have been laying next to the car, but it seemed like the back door was opening while that was going on, and I don't know how that could fucking happen. So you're right. There's some things here that don't make sense. So there's a little goofy things, but they don't hurt my enjoyment of the film whatsoever. The payoff was awesome. The two killers did not fucking see coming. I don't care who you are. If you say you saw it coming, you're probably lying. You may have gotten one of them. I think at some point I thought Billy was the killer. I don't think I ever thought Stu was the killer. A lot of people probably thought Randy was the killer. Dude was obsessed with horror movies. And then the dad was the obvious red herring. You had the principal, and then he gets killed.
I thought Dewey was the fucking killer when I first saw it.
Yeah, because especially when he says, "You're not scared, are you?" And he's got I think that was their last attempt at making him the red herring. But, yeah, there were a lot of red herrings in this movie, and they just did an excellent job overall. I thought the Ghostface mask was amazing. The whole costume, I mean, it grows on you. And obviously it's still important to this day because you still see kids wearing this at Halloween every single year.
When people spend all that money on the cosplaying, you don't have to. You go spend $20, you've got the actual fucking suit that he wore, mask and robe included.
And it's not like Michael Myers where they fucked up the mask in multiple, episode or entries after the fact. You just get, or even like Jason, where you can get a shitty hockey mask and it doesn't look good. This one's easy. And it's funny because they had to go through so much trouble to find this mask. I was going to go through a lot of trivia, but this show actually lasted an hour and 45 minutes just talking about the movie. So I won't, but if you go to IMDb, you can find all sorts of trivia about it. The one thing I wanted to throw out is that, I talked about this earlier, they're having a hard time finding a filming location because they were originally supposed to film it at this high school, Santa Rosa High School in California, in the Santa Rosa district. But apparently they all pulled out because they got all pissy about some girl getting kidnapped and murdered around there. So because they were such a pain in the ass, Wes Craven put in the end credits under the special thanks section, "No thanks whatsoever to the Santa Rosa City School District Governing Board," which to me is just fucking amazing.
What actually happened was they were concerned about the rating of R with lots of blood, a rated R.
Hey, Blake, talk for a minute about the movie. I'll be right back. I got to mute my phone real quick and go take care of the daughter. I'll be right back.
Okay. But yeah, what they were really commenting on with that was they were afraid that with the rating of R and all the blood and it being a horror movie, that it wasn't going to look good for the school. But after they turned Scream down, they went ahead and went with another movie. It was directed by, I believe, Ron Howard, called Inventing the Abbots. It was a love story set at the high school, and it too was rated R, so with lots of foul language. So they traded in one good movie for another. But I don't think it hurt to film, as a whole, because we never saw what that other location would have looked like. So it was very interesting to see all the stuff that went into the making of the film, as far as location, scouting, and the actors that they chose. Just really good overall film, and like Travis was saying, and I can kind of piggyback off what I said earlier, horror was going through one of those like dead points where there just wasn't a lot of good horror out there. And every so often it does that. And I'll use a quote that Wes Craven used, and he said every so often it goes through a dead period, but then it comes back like gangbusters. And it's just funny that he was, at the head of a movie that brought horror back from, the point of no return for a second time. He did it first in 1984 with Nightmare on Elm Street, and then he did it again with Scream in 1996. Is that you, Travis? Are you back?
Yeah, I'm back. Sorry about that. I don't
everything
know.
Okay?
Yeah, there's a kid crying. I don't know which one. And I got up there, and nobody was crying anymore. So it's all good.
Okay. Well,
they just don't want me to sleep, but I'm not trying to sleep right now, so it's not a big deal.
Well, all I was saying was I was piggybacking off what you said, and as far as the reason the Santa Rosa turned them down, they were worried about the blood, the gore, and the language, and the rating of R, but at that same time they turned down Scream in favor of a movie called Inventing the Abbots, which was a love story set at the high school directed by Ron Howard, which was also rated R with lots of foul language. So they turned down Scream for no reason. But I don't think it hurt the movie because we are so used to that location. We don't know what the other location would have looked like unless you go watch, Inventing the Abbots. So that's why.
Wes Craven fought for an American location too. Like he was willing to quit the job over it. They didn't want to do it. They wanted to do it in Canada originally, and he said no, fuck you.
Yeah, it was weird.
But yeah, Wes knew what he was doing. I mean, there was just so many good things. Like, I think a lot of people give Kevin Williamson a lot of credit for the success of the movie, which he deserves a lot. But Wes Craven, I mean, you needed the right director, and I think that's why they were so obsessed with getting Wes Craven for the movie, is because the script was awesome, but you still need a director that can deliver it. It could have turned out bad.
Absolutely.
And honestly, I think it would have been worse had Drew Barrymore played Sydney. I mean, I talked about it earlier, but I think this movie would have been too focused on Drew Barrymore and less focused on the actual quality of the movie. By the way, I don't know if Vic's coming back. He's hung up and called like 8 times. I don't know what's the deal, but he gives it 4 chainsaws out of 4. I give it 4 machetes out of 4. There's no possible way anybody should ever give it anything less than 4. So that's my opinion.
Well, I'll give it 4 out of 4 Freddy gloves then, razor gloves, since you guys use your normal.
Well, we always do. But you know what? If we're going to go with that, then 4 hunting knives, and we'll just throw that on top of it all. This movie, this deserves to be up there with Texas Chainsaw, Nightmare on Elm Street, Friday the 13th, Halloween, all of that shit. It's as good or better than any of them. I mean, the acting's better than most of them.
Oh, yeah, with the exception of a few characters and stuff. But, yeah. And I wanted to kind of...
Except for the principal. He sucks.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's funny because it's Henry Winkler.
Proper Winkler and Bees. You can do it.
He's a fucking midget, by the way. We saw him at Fright Night Film Fest 6 years ago or so, maybe 7 years now, and he was fucking short and apparently kind of an asshole. And
really?
Vic actually met Matthew Lillard, Matthew Lillard is awesome, Stu. Dude, He is cool as hell. And Billy, Skeet Ulrich, he was cool too. We met them last year at Scarefest. Cool guys, especially Lillard. Like, I can't say enough good things about him. He's a really cool guy.
Oh,
which you can tell from the movie, I think. Just the way he acts. Yeah,
and then, he had they showed some video clips online of him. A little girl was in line to see him because she was a fan of Scooby-Doo.
Or Shaggy, rather. Yeah.
Yeah, and didn't know that was him. Her face lit up, and it just made him so happy to do that. But, man, we were talking about horror going to a dead point. I think it's really cool to end this show with a sort of a quote from Wes. He said that every so often in film, horror experiences a dead point where it's banned outright, or it's not socially acceptable, or there's something that's keeping it from rising up, and it just falls down again, but it comes back like gangbusters. And how cool is it that he could say it happened twice for him in the 80s with Nightmare on Elm Street, because horror was going on a downfall. We were told in 1984 that we were getting the last Friday the 13th movie. There wasn't a Halloween that year, and there was really nothing else. There wasn't anything else. So then he comes out with Nightmare on Elm Street, and then again in 1996, he directs a masterpiece that brings horror back from the dead again. How cool is it that we can say that he helped a revolutionary revitalization of horror twice, not just once, but twice. I think that's beautiful.
Yeah, I always say that. Like, I put John Carpenter above Craven, but you have to give commercially more credit to Craven because of Scream. Nightmare, obviously, too, but Scream, it was, as much as, Nightmare on Elm Street is more his baby, Scream was the more successful monetarily, I guess,
Oh, well, to this date, I don't know exactly how much money all of the Scream films combined have made.
You have to adjust for inflation and all that bullshit too, you know.
And then you've got the TV series is probably, even though a lot of people don't like it, a lot of people still watched it, you know, so that ratings there. And then
I watched the whole first season, but I haven't watched the second, and I don't know if it's any good or not. First one was okay. I didn't care enough to keep on watching though, you know.
Yeah, they changed the mask too, which was kind of, you know, shitty, but whatever.
I hate it.
Yeah, and
I guess it looks okay for what they're going for, but it's like, then why even call it Scream? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, and at last count, as far as I'm aware, Nightmare has made around 600, 700 million as far as movies being out, box office receipts, merchandising, licensing fees, and all that stuff. And but I would have to say that Scream has probably made way more than that, because I have seen a Scream costume on at least one child every year since Scream come out. And there are years when I don't see Freddy Krueger costumes. To my chagrin,
there's two popular ones, the hockey mask and the ghost face. Now, I know that you may see Leatherface, you may see Freddy, you may see Michael, but I guess because they're cheap. You don't need a bunch of bullshit with them. You know what I mean? With Freddy, you need all sorts of things to make it work. With Michael Myers, you need the mask, and the jumpsuit's not so easy for a kid. You know, but this is just easy. A cloak and a ghost face mask, easy.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you go spend $30. I mean, if you want to get really fancy and get the one that bleeds, you can, you know, press the thing in the palm of your hand and make it bleed. You can go spend $40 or $50 and get that, and have the bleeding knife and, you know, all that kind of shit, too. I mean, it's very economical and affordable to do that costume.
Yeah, and it's interesting because, I don't know, man. This, like I said, It's hard, you know. I always say the Mount Rushmore of horror is, you know, Jason, Freddy, Michael, Leatherface. But there's a debate there that maybe Ghostface should be there instead of Leatherface. And I hate to say that, and it probably upsets Vic whenever I talk to him. But it's like Leatherface is more underground, and you see Ghostface every year at Halloween. So it's hard to say that, you know what I'm saying? It just depends on what you're looking for. We'll get more into the series as a whole as we move on. Next week, we're talking 2 of them, 2 and 3 next week, because they were released pretty fucking quick after the first one. I mean, they were like, it was like 80 slashers, you know? They were right on it. So, not a lot of time elapsed between them, but we get a lot of the same characters in the next one, and we'll talk about that next week. Blake, you're invited as always, if you're free and available, and have the time to hang out with a couple of drunks, one that's actually here, one that can't figure out how to work a phone in Elizabethtown.
Like I said, I mean, it's no problem if I have the time. I'll definitely do it. You guys are like family to me, and, you know, gave me my start as far as, you know, pushing my stuff. And then I had some success. And, you know, a lot of what I had was because you guys helped push me and had me plug myself and gave me a forum. So, of course, if I can be of help at any time and I'm available, I'll do it for sure. No problem.
Yeah. I mean, like, it was fun having you, man. It was nice to bounce some shit off of about Scream. And it was cool to have little debates about what scenes were Billy, what scenes were somebody that watches it really close like I do. So it was cool talking to you about it. And another cameo in this movie that we hadn't talked about, Linda Blair was in this too, just randomly in there.
Yeah.
You see her twice in the movie, one specifically where she's bothering Sydney. But yeah, this movie is good shit, definitely worth 4 all around. But Blake, since we're hitting almost 2 hours now, why don't you go ahead and throw out any plugs you got for us?
Okay, sure. I've got a Facebook page. It's an author page. You just search me, Blake Best. Like I said, I'm the guy that has the sort of 80s porn stash and a nose ring. So that's kind of a distinctive thing. I've got a regular Facebook page, but I don't tend to add fans to that one because I've got so much going on. I've got almost 1,000 friends on there, and way too many. And I try to direct all that stuff to my author page. I just put out a new album, which Travis and Vic got. You know, I sent them copies of it today, and I've been, you know, out doing that and doing some stuff for some films and composing and stuff. So I got a campaign on GoFundMe now that I'm doing to help pay for the cost of production and art design for my new book, because my new book is about halfway finished. It's a book about the Loch Ness Monster, kind of a creature